So the Federal Reserve in the United States just held a crypto conference led by one of the pro-crypto board of governors from the Federal Reserve. Yet the market is still down from the highs just a couple weeks ago. Yet, if you think about it and you zoom out a little bit, Bitcoin is up 8x from 2 years ago. ETH is way up from its lows. It's only small cap altcoins that have yet to really start running. Well, today let's look closer at the price action to see what is going on. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Have you ever worried about money? What have you learned to use some of your money to work for you in just the right ways that you then, after doing this long enough, never had to worry about money again? Now, personally, I grew up poor in life. Actually, too poor to buy Kool-Aid. We had to buy the cheap imitation brand called Flavor Aid. Now, I realized that the true value of money is that it allows you options in life. And it can decrease that gnawing worry we carry of how do we meet all these financial obligations on a day-to-day basis when we don't have money. Now, after a few months of being in crypto, when I started 8 years ago, I recognized that crypto investment done right had the most amazing, massive potential to allow people to get to a place where they never have to worry about money again. And after 8 years of being in crypto, I know that crypto can and will change your finances and your life, but only if you do it right. And while being in crypto, I learned something very scary. You see, I know people that have been here even longer than I have, but aren't even meaningful rich yet. They haven't even solved their money problem. They are still stuck where they were when they started. You see, I learned that 89% of people don't make meaningful money or flat out lose money in crypto, which is the best opportunity of our lifetimes, but it's because they're doing it wrong. Only 5% of investors make life-changing gains that take them into the lifestyle that we've all dreamed about, where they don't have to really meaningfully worry about money again. Well, haven't we learned in life that if you just find what the successful people are doing and you copy exactly the things that they do, you start having their types of results. So I focused 100% of everything in my early crypto journey on figuring out what those 5% did and put that into practice myself. By 2021, using those principles, I was able to fire my day job, move to the city I wanted, and put myself in position to never have to work again if I didn't want to, because money was taken care of. Now, here is where I share with you in this channel what I learned. I share with you my research on companies I like and why I like them. Now, today is our price analysis day. This is a day where we combine what I've learned with our special guest, Paul, joining us from DEVVE. Paul has 30 years price analysis experience analyzing charts, and it's a fun time to look at the price movements of what is happening, to see what is cheap, what is really cheap, and what might be expensive, and what might be about to explode. Do note that if you're looking to be part of that 5% that make life-changing gains, join the Patreon in the link below. That will give you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. In the private Discord, you're surrounding yourself with people who have learned or are learning to do the things that the 5% of people do. That is exactly the right way to think about it, so that you never have to worry about money again. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many different markets. None of this to be taken as financial advice. So without further ado, help me welcome my co-host today, Paul from DEVVE. Paul, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Apologies for missing last week, but I had a family commitment. And what on earth have you guys been up to? Like, leave it for a week and it's like total chaos. It's incredible. So yeah, I think we need to restore a bit of order in the markets.
Yes, so much leverage was liquidated. This is actually a challenge that we talk about. First of all, I tell my audience, like, I don't deal with leverage here. Crypto is far too volatile, in my opinion, to mess with leverage, because you can be right and you can be wrong for just a few days and your position gets liquidated. And leverage is just introducing risk in an already volatile situation. So I learned the hard way, unfortunately, years back, that I just don't do leverage in crypto, and you don't need to make meaningful money. Secondly, it's like there are big players in this market who can move the markets based on just a little bit of news, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, yeah. A lot happened in a lot of different markets. It might have looked like it was just a crypto thing, but it was everywhere. So equities came off, bonds moved globally. There was a big move, and it was right across currencies. So whichever way you look at it, there's going to be people who are looking at equities and see it as an equity move. People are looking at cryptocurrencies, seeing it as a cryptocurrency move. But when you take a step back and look at everything, you see that all the markets moved right across the world. So this was a risk-off event, which in some ways is a positive. And I think in many ways is a positive, because it means it wasn't just people getting out of crypto. It was a kind of fear of what was coming next, potentially from the Federal Reserve, potentially on tariffs, and a spat between President Trump and Xi, and a political move with regard to raw materials, which we know that there's a problem with raw materials because they're going up so fast. China wants them, so does the US, and they have to play ball. And China have been very clever in securing a lot of minerals from Africa, and meanwhile the US has been, sort of busy with political infighting under the Democrats and messing about with DEI. So, the Chinese mean business, and yeah, they better step up their game politically in order to turn this around. And perhaps that's what's happening. But the markets are all there to play for, and we look at it through the lens of what's moving, but there are political shifts that are going on here. And what we saw was a kind of a reverberation in the markets that was caused by what could have turned into a bigger spat. Now, there are a lot of people who are leveraged, like you were saying, and as soon as the markets started to look like they were coming off, it was like, this is the top, this is it, this is going to crash. All the crash calls started to come out. End of the market calls came out, and it was obviously a bit of a downdraft in everything. But if you look at how quickly it's come back, that should tell you a lot about potentially where things are going to go. Now, maybe not Bitcoin at this point, and yes, the riskiest of the risky are still under pressure, but the macro situation is still holding up. So it is important to look at what's going to happen next. Now, my core view has been that interest rates are going to be cut, and they were cut in September, and it's more likely that any politics between Trump and Jerome Powell will start to fade into the background when you've got market volatility. People will forget about their spat, and it will be more politically on the part of the Fed, politically accurate to be cutting rates, rather than them feeling that Trump is forcing them to do it. If the markets are being volatile and there's overseas pressure, that makes it more likely that rates are going to be cut. So we've got, I think it's next week, it's going to be the next FOMC. 25 basis points is baked in. I don't think there'll be 50 basis points, but there could be another, well, it should be another 25 following that. So we've got 2 rate cuts coming up. And if the markets are starting to go back up whilst these rate cuts are happening, you can see that this is an extremely bullish situation. It's going to cause much more risk on, much more weaker dollar, much more of all the things that we were, have been talking about over the last 2 years. Now, there is a chance that October will be volatile. I say a chance, it's already been volatile, but October is a volatile month historically. We had the crash of 1987 in October. We had the crash of 1929 in October. September, October are crash months, and that's why we got Halloween at the end of it. So it is that sort of month, and I know that to me, when I heard people saying cyclically it's bullish for Bitcoin or whatever, I always think of October as a month where you've just got to be a bit careful. Now, it looked a couple of weeks ago that like things were just about to break out. They'd already retraced. They come back up again, and they look ready to go. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, and it would be great if things did turn around or did continue in breaking out. But what's important about what we've seen, and we'll go to the charts in a moment, is the markets came off. There was a big panic. Everyone said sell, and they're probably gone to the sidelines. And the markets have bounced back like pretty quickly. So overall, I think that's a positive situation.
Agreed. It often doesn't feel like it, but realize that even when we're in a larger bull run, the market does 2 steps forward and 1 step back. If you look at, and Bitcoin does tend to run first, followed by larger caps, and it's playing right in line with that. So Bitcoin was breaking to new all-time highs, and it stepped back from that. Those kind of steps happen. This is normal. This is just part of what being in the market is about. But what is abnormal is usually the cycle is about a 4-year cycle. I think because the Fed policy has often coincided with the presidential election year, which also happens the same time the Bitcoin halving does. Like interest rates come down, the Fed has switched to quantitative easing around the same time of the Bitcoin halving, that the pump came, the really big pump came the next year. I think because the delay in the Federal Reserve monetary policy, I think this is a longer cycle than normally we're used to. And because it's longer, many people are panicking. They're feeling the pressure, and they're feeling, oh my gosh, is this ever going to happen? But when you zoom out and you look at the bigger picture, it's still right on track. It's just delayed. It's not but the signs are all there. The economy, everything is lining up right, that this rocket ship is fueling up and it's on the launch pad, and it just hasn't really launched yet, and that's okay. All right. Now, Chris brings up gold and silver got wrecked. I hadn't even looked at those prices. Have you been following that?
Oh, yeah, laser focused on that. Yeah, that was so I can tie that into this first chart of the US dollar. So what I noticed from September, that the dollar was starting to squeeze higher, and that was a bit of a warning sign because gold and silver had started to accelerate in a way that people were panic buying. So if I've said to a few people, have you seen gold and silver? And they're like, no. And I just couldn't believe it hadn't hit the mainstream. But it just tells me that this trend in gold and silver is not over. Now, you asked about, when do we see the spike reversal? Well, that was it. That was the one. On the 17th of October, we got the spike reversal. And then you say it got wrecked, but the breakout point was 3,400, around there. And so this trend has been a really clear one, but it had to, anything that goes up really fast like this has to correct. You will see a correction. It's just that I'm not going to try and pick the top until the signal comes in. So gold started to, the dollar was rallying, and I was just getting an uneasy feeling as the gold price was disconnecting. And there was panic every day. It was going up $30, $50, $100, $30, 50, 100, whatever. It just kept squeezing. And the dollar index was just quietly rising in the background. And that was for me a bit of a warning sign. And we got the inevitable correction because there will be people who were short and then covered right at the wrong point, or went long right at the wrong point, bought on leverage right at the wrong point. They're going to get squeezed out. So it would be good if this has a consolidation here. But the looking at the dollar and trying to figure out what's happening in terms of whether risk on is going to happen or risk off. what I look for is, and this is why I look at so many markets, because it takes sort of looking at something that not many people are looking at. This is the chart of the US dollar against the Canadian dollar, and it had been rising pretty much since June. So that led the way up. And I was wondering whether this move was going to be echoed in the rest of the market. So we also saw it in things like the dollar against the Chinese renminbi. It went up, but then it reversed. So there was a few signs that the dollar was being bought in various places. Against sterling, yes, but we've got political problems here, so that's not so surprising. But buying the dollar is usually a sign that markets are worried or looking at stress. And so I was getting uneasy about this rally, and it looks like it's coming off now. Now, it's not 100% because we've seen the high, we've seen the panic, and it's now starting to come down again. There could be a bit more in the tank. Maybe it gets back up to 100. I'm not sure. I think I even said on the show it could get back up to 100. But the significance of it pressing against the gold price exploding higher was it kind of went into this parabolic short-term move over a few days, which was a warning that things weren't right there. So so in the headline is that in the short term, yes, it's gold and silver and precious metals are overdone. But in the longer term, I don't think there's any change in trend, and the same for the US dollar. And if we look at how the equity markets responded, we got the Dow Jones here. So it had this collapse. So it started from a small move, and then I was looking here and thinking, yeah, the market might come down a bit, and then we got this really strong panic. But it's reversed, and it's now back up near the highs again, and most people are out because they panicked out. So what does that tell us? It tells us that this is probably gonna go to 50,000 very quickly, um, and if it's doing that whilst rates are being cut, there's more money being pumped into the system. Now, I mentioned that if you look across the globe, everything got hit. So the Japanese stock market got hit. Look, bang. Where is it? New all-time highs. The Chinese stock market got hit. Where is it? Right back at the level where it was before, ready to break higher once again. That does not look like a bear market. It does look like volatility. It's not easy to trade, but it is enough to change sentiment. And most people's sentiment is very bearish. So what I'm trying to say here is that the bull market, the macro bull market in the background still looks very much on. Base metals still going high. We've got aluminium. Well, this is copper. Copper's still going up. Aluminium is still going higher. Gosh, that looks like a buy to me. We got nickel, actually, not so much. I mean, that's breaking low. I'd have to see why that is. Lead has come off a bit. That's more broadly range bound. But zinc has just broken higher. A lot of the base metals are moving up. And again, the stock markets are the most sensitive. The bond markets as well. I mean, we could talk about the bond markets. 3-month money. Remember, I was saying about how this looks like it's going to go lower. And so 3-month money was at 385, 3.85%. It's now trading at 3.8% and going lower. 6-month money is doing the same. It's heading towards, possibly 3.5%. So it means more cuts are coming. 2-year money, that's falling as well. And 10-year money, which is what everyone was worried about, this is what convinced Trump to go back or step back on his on the tariff deals, was when this started to go up, because government borrowing in the long end, they don't want to lose control of that. That would be a big problem. Even that's going down. And I'm going to throw in that the UK, a lot of people are saying that UK borrowing is in a lot of trouble. We've got effectively a Democrat, really a Labour government, but to put it in language of the main audience, we got a left-leaning government, and they're saying that usually they're incompetent. I mean, all governments in certain levels are incompetent, but they're more incompetent with the economy. And this was looking very much like it was going to break over 4.8%, which would have been disastrous for our economy. But even this has come back down. So what the headline again is that we've had this shakeout, and we'll have to see what happens, because nobody knows anything for sure, and everything is down to probabilities. But after perhaps another week or so of nervousness, I wouldn't be surprised if things are motoring back up, and it's all like, oh, what really happened, and it will be another one of those another one of those things that are ignored, like the Silicon Valley Bank situation when that happened, and that was supposed to be the end of the market. Or what was it? I can't even remember. There's been so many of them. If you can remember them, let me know. But there was the debt ceiling, there was Middle East, there was so many that were supposedly going to stop the market, and it's just continued higher. Now, as far as Bitcoin goes, which of course we're going to look at, right, that's Bitcoin Cash. Let me get to BTC. So Bitcoin, yeah, it had to go. It had to go into a new high, which is a classic bull trap. So I will buy a breakout. As you know, I look for breakouts. That gets me in. But if it falls below the level, then I get out. I don't hang about. It's if the signal is negative, that's why I have stops. That's the only way to trade from a technical point of view. Now, we have broken through this kind of 108 support, 107, 108. There's a lot of support there, and there's a bit of a battle going on at the moment around this level. It is very key. So, I'm not clear on where this is going to go in the very short term. But even if it does correct, as I've said before, the broader trend is still up, and it just doesn't feel like we're at the end of the market from a sentiment point of view. If we look at the sentiment on fear and greed, it's at 29, and markets don't usually top out with fear and greed at those levels. It's not impossible, but it's just more unlikely, and especially when we got this backdrop of the macro scene looking still positive. So it's all to play for. Let's see how this turns out. Again, I don't know anything for 100%. This is all just looking at probabilities, but it feels very much like it was just a short-term shakeout. It's and it's done its job, and you kind of need that in order to keep the bull market going. Because if it was completely clear all the time, it would be easy. And markets aren't easy; they have to be hard. And things like this are why the market is so hard.
Yeah, like it is hard to know exactly how things will play out. Like, this was a big market level event. Now, was there some manipulation? There was some really big money that moved into some crypto wallets before this happened. A day or two happened that then took advantage of it tremendously. Did they know it was coming? Maybe they knew exactly what China was doing before all of us did. But this is why I do take the approach that I do, where I let my money work for me. And over the greater cycle of this, I don't worry about the day-to-day stuff. That these pullbacks have no meaningful impact, other than I ask myself, are there some that I like that I can buy more of because they just got cheaper? It's not sell time. It'll be sell time when everybody's talking about how amazing crypto prices are. I mean, you saw an amazing thing with gold, although Paul brings up an interesting point. When you look at that chart, you see the parabolic move, and that's the type of moves that I sell into. Now, is it over? It might not be over with gold, because there's a key component of it's over that's missing, which is Paul was asking some people about gold, and a whole bunch of people hadn't been watching it, even amidst that parabolic move. And one of my topping signals is that everybody is talking about it. And so if everybody isn't talking about gold yet, even though that move is quite parabolic, maybe it's just going to settle for a little bit, continue further, because near the top, almost everybody is talking about it. And with crypto, one of my signals is when everyone's saying crypto is terrible and everyone loses money in crypto, it is buy time. When everyone's saying how crypto is the future and it's never going to stop going up, that is sell time. And we're not there yet. So that means if we're not there yet, it's still buy time. It's time to do research on what is still cheap. what hasn't meaningfully run yet that has a good chance to run when the market cascades parabolically, so that then you can sell when everyone's talking about how amazing crypto is. So we're still in the buy period, which is a good thing. And we're not yet at harvest the heck out of everything. So with that said, let's look at some crypto charts. So you were pulling up Bitcoin. We're going to take a look at some of the majors today. We're going to look at Bitcoin, which we looked at. We'll look at ETH, Solana, XRP, and then we got some viewer suggestions already. We got Cornucopias, we got Senate. We'll take a look at DEVVE. We are live here. So Kuma says, good morning, gentlemen. Chris says, morning, Rainbakers. Happy Wednesday. He said, Paul, we were dying without you last week with the blood in the market, but I guess since you were being a good son, I'll allow it. Because he had an appointment taking care of a family member. So we appreciate that. Welcome back, Paul. Hi, Jay. Stoked you guys are here. It's great to be here with you, babe. Yes, COPI, we can look at Senate. Good to hear from you, Paul. You weren't leveraged, were you?
No.
Nope. All right, IMS in the house. Good to have you here with us, guys. All right, let's take a look at ETH price.
So ETH, fairly straightforward. It was hovering around this high, as you know, and I got really excited about a breakout, and it didn't happen on this move, and then it recovered, and it was like, okay, off we go again. It's still got this big resistance point to take out, and yeah, it's still consolidating. I'm not sure in the very short term where this is going to go, but the bigger picture is still positive. And I would have thought if it was going to sell off or be the end of the move, it'd have to be much lower than this in order to indicate that. And at this point in time, given the sentiment, it's holding up relatively well. That doesn't mean it won't go lower. It doesn't guarantee that it's going to go up from here. But just at this point, a retracement is possible. It's kind of a 50-50, but longer term, it's close enough to this prior high for it still to be all to play for. And just takes a few days of price action of it moving back up into this zone here, and suddenly it looks like the bull market is ready to pop again. So let's see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks. It would be a wait at this short-term stage, but longer term, it feels like there's more upward pressure than downward pressure from a big picture point of view. So, I still favor it, and I still think it will go. It's just going to take a bit longer. When it comes to Solana, here we are. Now, Solana, I've liked Solana for a while, and again, it's a similar thing where it was working towards its prior high. We have got this spike here to deal with, so it did have this strong move, but this is still an upward trend. It's hit the lower end of that upward trend, and it's hanging around there, which I don't like. I normally like to see it hit and then rally hard, and that indicates that there's good buying at that point. But we are in a bit of a kind of nervous sentiment around all markets, so I guess that's not really surprising. So it's had two attempts to break below 173, and both of those have failed. Yeah, it's a big percentage retracement from the high, but it's still broadly in an upward trend, and all of these markets are volatile. There's no question of, you just look at prior price action, you see that they just move around like this. And that's another reason why leverage can be so dangerous, because not only are they moving a lot, they're moving, volatility is high. So that's all you can say. So being leveraged in normal markets can be tricky, but being leveraged in markets that are extremely volatile is something that needs to be considered very, very carefully, shall I say. So at the moment, big picture, I still think this is a buy, but in the short term, I think it's a wait, because we're still dealing with the reverberations of this volatility. So, but it hasn't done enough to change the trend. and it may do so, but not yet. So I want to say big picture hasn't changed. Short term, yes, we're going to wait and see whether 170 gets broken. That's a big level. It would start to be a little concerning if it gets below there, but we'll have to cross that bridge if and when we come to it. So yeah, bigger picture, I think that's still positive. Do you want me to go on to the next one, or do you want to?
Yeah, well, yes. So we're just going through these, looking at the charts. So this is working out well. Meaningfully, I don't buy Solana. I don't buy ETH anymore. Sure, I was buying ETH at $70 and $100 during the bear market of 2019 and 2018, and that was good enough, even though it was still a blue chip. But at these prices, I don't touch these blue chips. So other than I hold some just to exchange because you need them for gas essentially, but I don't meaningfully hold positions on these.
Yeah. Yeah. So to do what was XRP? So XRP. Now, what happened with XRP? I think this is unusual, highly unusual, because if you look at the volume wasn't that high. But the move, if this was right, I don't even know if this is definitely right, but a move from 3 to
Oh, that's right. And that was because of leverage. The cascading longs.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing that is markets have done this in every single market at some stage, and it's unusual but not impossible, and it's not the sort of thing you normally expect to happen. But in this one, this is suspicious in as much as the amount that it's gone in a very short space of time, and it's so unusual for the environment, and by environment I mean the macro situation, and it's so unusual for the actual volatility of the market itself. It was getting ready to break higher. It gave very little indication that that was going to happen, and look how much it recovered as well. So I would be inclined to say that there was some. Well, I wouldn't mind looking into a bit more as to why it's happened like this, and because it sticks out technically so much compared to everything else. But again, it's because it's recovered and because it's still playing within the kind of bullish zone. I wonder whether this was an attempt just to clear out positions before it goes higher. And I guess when something's done something like this, I'm not gonna jump in. I wouldn't jump in until things settle down a bit, because that nervousness continues for a few weeks. But technically, anything that's gone from, if you look at it from, it's gone from 140 to 239. I mean, you can view it whichever way you want, but this rebound was extremely powerful. And that means that if it stayed down here, that would have been really bad, like really bad. But because it's rallied back up, what could happen here is you get another retracement where everyone panics again and then it moves up. So I think that could be the way forward. It kind of shakes people out again, has a look below 2, and then goes up. But big picture, I still think it's on the buy side. It's positive, but I wouldn't be stepping in until the volatility kind of calms down a bit. So longer term, I think it's a buy. Shorter term, I think it's a wait because of this vol.
Yeah, I do like XRP for as one of the mainstays of the new financial rails for the new ecosystem, and most people haven't wrapped their minds around it, but the banking system is changing. The monetary system around the world, what people are using to transmit funds, is changing, and this infrastructure has been being built for 10 years now, and the capital is starting to be deployed along the XRP rails, and it is a really big deal that most of the world hasn't really woken up to. So I think for the longer term, XRP does well. In the short term, like, I don't know, could go back down again. When I buy, I'm basically buying thinking, well, is it cheap enough? And it's like, okay, it's decently cheap. Not as cheap as it was earlier, but it's decently cheap. And I think it's going to be a lot more expensive in the future. And when am I going to be selling? When everybody is talking about XRP. So I hold a little bit of XRP myself. I would have liked to have scooped up more around the 50 cents mark. But those prices are probably gone for forever. And it's one of the few blue chips that I own, because I look at things and I say, does this have 100x potential for this bull market? And most blue chips, I can't look at and think that, you know what, I think this one has 100x potential. XRP was one of those that had serious upside potential, and it's already realized a little bit of that. Realized at 250, it's essentially up 5x from the bear market lows. In fact, a little bit more. You see it wick down all the way to about 30 cents in part of the bear market. So at that price, it's literally 8x up from the lows. I still think it has a significant run ahead of it. Just it's already realized part of its run. And so am I adding to my XRP position this? It's not the play I'm making. As I'm deploying more capital, I'm looking at things that still might have 100x ahead of it. I think XRP does run 100x from its lows at 30 cents, which would take it to a $30 XRP. But realize that from here, that's only a 12x. So some of the gains have already been realized with XRP. All right, let's take a look at DEVVE and see what you're liking about where it's at.
Yeah, I mean, DEVVE's basically kind of, if this is up to date, let's just double check. It's still in a range. I think the last time we looked at this, it was a weight, and I think it's still a weight because the these highs are getting lower. It's in the middle of a range here, and not really a lot's happened. So we need to see this. All these charts have changed, by the way. I don't know why. All the kind of markings I put, I've got an app on my desktop, and when I go into the this browser that it puts it in, sometimes it chooses a different saved version, so all the lines have gone, and I'm not going to mess around with it now to find out what's happened. But basically, we've still got this downward trend line, which is what we were looking for as a minimum to change the trend. It's fairly balanced here because it's right in the middle of the range, so it's a weight. I would say longer term, I'm going to say it's more on the bullish side than the bearish side, but not by much. But it's on the bullish side because of the macro situation. I need to see a green light, which would be a break of this resistance point. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. And I don't think a lot has really changed since last time. On the positive side, given the volatility in the market, people didn't jump on this as the first one to sell, and it's not breached any major levels from this year, mainly being this 16th of June low. So that is a positive sign that level hasn't gone. Not saying it won't ever go, because it could go. But if that had gone, I'd be like, yeah, that's getting into sell territory. It's tipping the balance more to the downside. But it's hanging in there. It's hanging in where it was before. So it's a wait.
Yeah, it is trading along this bigger pattern. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see, percentage. All right. Essentially, when I look at this, I see a great big W. And some key things about what I call W's is that we have a higher low here than we did here. And at some point, probabilities are it then goes up like this. And it looks like we're coming to that point fairly soon. So, DEVVE, this is the kind of buys that are out there on position I look for. Now, if you haven't seen my interviews with the team at DEVVE, you're missing out really on fundamentally why I like this one and why I think there are strong enough fundamentals that not just because the chart looks like this that I'm interested in it, but also because the fundamentals behind it, that I think it's massively undervalued and that has a strong future. Now, realize I'm highly biased towards DEVVE. It's one of my larger positions in crypto that I hold. And there's a reason why I do interviews with him. I like it because I'm an investor myself. I've made my money not from YouTube, but from investing myself in crypto for the last 8 years. And this is one of my picks that I personally was making during the bear market that I like for the future. And I'm patient and waiting to let it play out. Continues to be massively undervalued. Even here, when it was a lot higher, I felt like still undervalued for what I think it can do in the bull run. And so here it's massively undervalued, in my opinion, for what it can do, what I think it will do in the bull run. So that's why I'm holding it. That's why I took a little bit of profits, because I was up considerably here, but just a little bit of profits because I expect that it's going to do well in this coming bull run, much better than it has been. So I like DEVVE a lot. It's one of my favorites for this bull run. All right. IMS says DEVVE is sleeping. Bumper is looking like it may or may not survive. So realize when you are buying crypto, essentially what I look for is early stage blockchain businesses that have something special about them that if they survive could do well. At this point, it isn't clear whether Bumper is going to survive this bear market, especially with this bear market being longer than a lot of bear markets, because DeFi hasn't meaningfully run since March of 2021. And Bumper being squarely in the DeFi narrative, it hasn't seen a pump, and I don't know at this point if they survive. I still have some Bumper token. I'm holding on to it, but it's very questionable whether they survive or not. Don't know.
Wes also has made a comment about OMI, which I wouldn't mind discussing.
Yeah, let's take a look at OMI if you want to bring up your chart.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Wes, absolutely. I was wrong about OMI because I said that it was a buy, but I also said it was a buy in this zone as long as it didn't break below this level here. If you want to go back and look at the video and listen to exactly what I said whilst it's above this level here, it's a buy. I said it's also below water when it comes to the major resistance point, which is here. It needs to get above here for me to be happy about, or more comfortable about buying it for the long term. So I said if it breaks this, what would concern me is that it could go back down to the prior low and potentially even break it. So if you want to have a listen to that and tell me if I've got any of that wrong and post it, I'll be more than happy. But I get stuff wrong all the time. It's just that what I look for technically is where I'm wrong and where I would get out. For me, buying it here and then seeing it break this short-term support point and then break a major level is my warning sign. For other people, maybe they trade in a different way, but that's how I look at it. And I'm quite happy with that as a strategy because I know that I am going to get things wrong. But the difference between getting things wrong and trading is very different. It's like when you're wrong, it's like, how wrong are you? Will you stay in the position or will you cut it? And that's a decision that people have to make. Now, it might be that this is a fantastic buy at this point. It's not something I can buy or justify technically because I look at everything from a technical point of view. And I could even say I'm not allowed to buy it, but it's just it would be breaking rules. And when you're investing in the market, you do have to have rules for the very reason that sentiment can override your thought process and you can panic. There are times when it can make you panic. So it depends why you're getting into something, what your outlook is for. Maybe you're seeing things fundamentally that I'm not seeing that make this a fantastic buy. But from a technical point of view, what I was looking for a breakout that started from here. We got the first massive move to indicate this could be an impulsive move that could take us all the way to this resistance point here. We had a consolidation, which is not unusual from a very sharp move. But then we got a breakdown that if you look at each move of that was each one was a warning that something was going wrong. And it depends on how quickly you wanted to jump on that move. Of course, if you're only looking at a market once every 2 weeks or once every week, it's you've got to realize that things can change. Things could change between, now the end of the show and like 2 hours later. Things can change very quickly in the markets. So, but it's, I don't mind you pointing things out like that. I think it's absolutely fine. But if you do listen to what I said, I always try to have a strategy where, because I get things wrong, I have to know where I will get out. That is why I call it a parachute level. It's like an escape point, because I know that can happen. So, so that's my outlook on OMI for the moment. It's broken some key levels that have completely changed the landscape.
Yeah. A lot of what we're playing in crypto is we're playing probabilities, and Paul takes shorter term trades than I do. And with shorter term trades, there's points where he sees it's turning against him and he bails out.
Not necessarily. It depends whether things have changed technically. So a short-term trade can be a long-term trade as long as it doesn't give a signal that things haven't changed, if you see what I mean. So, but yes, I think I will react quicker to something that is potentially negative, and I don't mind kind of bailing out quicker and then having to rebuy higher, which is what other people find harder to do. I think that's a kind of fairer way of putting it.
Yeah. I don't sell based on the charts turning to the downside unless there's some fundamental news that I see that the underlying business that I'm interested in may be collapsing. At that point, I may sell. But I'm looking fundamentally at the bigger picture. And so when I see stuff like this doesn't scare me, because fundamentally the business is the same. The business side of it hasn't changed. All that's happened is the token associated with it has gotten at a more delicious price. So then the question is, okay, are there things that are up enough I can harvest them to buy more OMI? Or do I have to miss out on this massively underpriced deal? That's what it is, in my opinion, massively underpriced deal. And cool, some people are panicking out. That's what's caused this, and that is normal. Let me take the audience back in time, and it's 2020. Say you've been in crypto for 3 years during the bear market, and crypto has just absolutely been devastatingly punished. And you have money in a layer 1 blockchain at the time that, say, other layer 1 blockchains like Tron, like ETH, and some other ones are doing quite well. And you're in this one, in the market cap, which had been a $5 billion market cap, is now down to 300 million. Everyone is talking terrible about this. And it's 4 years behind schedule. So the test net is delayed. Everything's delayed. The founder is constantly under fire from people saying he doesn't know what he's doing. And the price has been trading around 7 cents, and it goes down to 5 cents. And you're like, wow, it's an amazing buy. And then it goes to 4 cents, and it goes to 3 cents, and it's an amazing buy. And then it goes up a little bit, and then it wicks down to under 2 cents. Now, does that mean it's, oh my gosh, I'm going to panic out? Because that's what it meant to a lot of people, is they sold and they panicked out and they were done. And they're just like, the founder is taking too long and this is never going to happen and I'm out. And I took it as a buying opportunity. I was like, well, fundamentally, the business is still on track, though they're delayed. The founder gives us good updates, so we know where things are at. And yes, it's delayed, but I still believe in this business long term. So I took it as an opportunity that, like, it's still solid. Well, that one made me serious money. It's now called Cardano, and now it's become a mainstay in the crypto space. But there was a point in time where it seemed extremely risky, that its survival was strongly in peril, according to everyone. And I didn't feel like it was so strongly in peril, that they were just tired of delays. and exhausted by delays. Isn't that the same place with OMI? People are exhausted by things not happening as soon as they think it should happen. But the business is fundamentally super on track. All that's happened is its token associated with it's gotten a lot cheaper. That's not a bad thing. That's an amazing thing for people that think differently. But realize that most people in crypto do quite bad. They see this as a terrible thing. They see this as a reason to get out of OMI permanently. I see this as a buying opportunity. Cool. Differences of opinions. But that's I will share with you, if you do what the 95% of people are doing in crypto, it's probably going to take you right to where that 95% of people get in crypto, which is not meaningfully ahead. They haven't really learned how to make their money work for them. Now, what I love about Paul joining us here is he trades a very different way than I do. And he has rules and he has ways he looks at what are the probabilities. He also has parachute points out, which this goes to the point of you learning how to be really good at this, because this is about learning how to make your money make money for you. If you can become really good at this skill, it can benefit you for the rest of your life. But realize you're probably going to be quite bad. I was quite bad when I started learning about how to make my money work for me. And it took me learning from people that understood it so that I could understand how to do it. Now, meaningfully, it's retired me. I don't ever have to work again if I don't want to. I do this because I choose to. I enjoy sharing what I learned with other people. And you're in the same boat that I was in. And you're on your way out of it if you're actually internalizing these principles, because it's not like I'm magic. I just learned these principles. Paul learned solid principles to survive in a thing. Price analysis, very, very hard. Most people fail out because they don't learn the right rules and they don't learn to desegregate their emotions from the principles they need to follow. Paul's an exception to that. Why? He learned how to take his emotions out of it and to just follow his principles and let his principles tell him what moves to make, so that his emotions didn't make him make bad decisions. All right. Coin market cap. Blonde Bro says coin market cap. We can take a look at that one later. Why don't we jump over? So, I mean, I kind of said it, but I didn't pull up the little graphic. This is definitely a buy for me on OMI. And I hope OMI stays around this price. I would love to see DEVVE pump coming this quarter and OMI to stay cheap like this so I could buy even more OMI. We'll see how it does. But this is an extremely good buy zone for OMI. Let's take a look at some of these suggestions, starting with Cornucopias.
Yeah, so we got the chart up here ready, and as you could probably guess, it's for me definitely a wait. It's not done what it needed to do in order to go into the buy category. The big resistance stroke support point at 2.16 cents is still sitting as resistance, and it's not making a run on that. We've just got this drift lower, and what we saw on the panic was a test of some low levels, very clear, very close to the prior low, but at least it recovered from there. But we've still got we've got at least one down week, and maybe this will be another. We'll have to see. But it hasn't broken this short-term downward trend yet, and it's still forming what could be a base, because this is how bases are. They are sideways price action over a long period of time, and then things turn around like relatively quickly. But it's that final part that it needs to do before it can turn into a buy for me, and it's just not done it. So it's definitely a wait. I'd say on the positive side, it's rebounded from the panic low point. On the negative side, it hasn't really changed its dynamic either, and it's still kind of drifting. So let's look at it again next week or whenever you want, and we'll see what's changed. We're on the lookout for a change in dynamic.
Yeah, Cornucopias just made a big announcement. They're going to be rebranding. Now, they're a blockchain video game. And I would have to say I've never been completely in love with their name. So they're rebranding from Cornucopias to Infinity Rising, which is a much better name. So, and the name means a lot. So when they're first making this, they named Cornucopias because they're like, we're going to have a lot of everything, like a cornucopia of like virtual world and games. And it's like, all right. Well, they were early in, and they were the first real AAA level game that I was aware of, building on Cardano, which gave them a unique position. I think that unique position helped them. But I don't know that the name helped them. Other than COPI was a little bit fun for a token name, but they're changing to Infinity Rising, and most everybody is pretty happy with that rebrand. Now, their token hasn't meaningfully gone up since then, but when you announce news, even if it's good news, in a market that's getting savaged, usually your token doesn't turn around and go up. And so it's gotten even cheaper and it's gotten really attractive. Now, the key principle for making money in anything is buy low, sell high. And it's so funny to me that some people freak out because the price has gotten lower. And I'm like, well, why would you freak out? You can buy more with your paycheck that you got last Friday or whenever for even cheaper than before. Cool. Why wouldn't you do that if you believe in the future of blockchain gaming and crypto? Why wouldn't you do that on the ones that you like? And I personally like cornucopias. That doesn't mean you should like cornucopias. It's just one of the ones I like in blockchain gaming, which I think blockchain gaming is one of my favorite narratives in crypto, because blockchain allows true ownership in video games. And I think true ownership is going to revolutionize video games completely. And so I think some of these games that get things right with ownership are going to crush it in ways people didn't even think were possible. And maybe I'm biased towards blockchain gaming, but my first big bet in blockchain gaming made me 100x returns, and I sold early. Overall, it did about a 3,000x from where I bought it. So I've seen the kind of magic that this idea of ownership can bring when you're buying cheap. So Cornucopia is one of my favorite ones. I think it's an amazing buy at this price. Their market cap is 13 million. That's amazing. It's one of the lowest points it's been this whole bear market. Got a little bit cheaper here at 1 cent. It's at 1.2 cents. So it's right near the whole bear market lows. And I think we're months away from a much bigger run in crypto and a much bigger run in altcoins. So timing is amazing. Right. What else do we have? We have Cornucopias. Let's take a look at another blockchain gaming token called Zenit.
Yeah. So technically, this is not looking good at all. It's broken a prior low, a major low. It's accelerated down, and it's currently sitting very close to the prior low as well. So, other than just deciding that it's inverted commas cheap, which is not what I do, I could not justify technically for me, and this is always, I'm talking for myself, not for what anyone else should do. I couldn't justify a buy. I wouldn't sleep personally if I was in a position like this. I'd want to get out, and I wouldn't mind buying it, even all the way up here. I'd prefer to be buying it much higher, which you might think is wrong, but it all comes down to how you view the market and what your own strategy is. Now, you may decide that fundamentally this is looking really cheap, and that would be something that I'm not going to look into, because for me the price tells me everything. So when I go to buy something, I want it to be going in the opposite direction. Now, the signal that will get me in or make me think that it's over would be some form of panic or some form of panic selling. We have seen a broad panic, and certain markets have recovered and certain markets haven't and have gone lower, and this is in the latter category. So I'd be looking for signs that this is turning around from a broad sector point of view, because it's definitely been weaker than some of the other markets, and it's a kind of canary as well, because if this starts to turn around, it could be really positive for the rest of the market, across the board. But that's if and when, and I have to deal with the price as it is now. So, for me, it's definitely a wait. And if I was in it, I'd be inclined to get out and then look to buy it when it's stabilized or moving higher. But that's just my own way of looking at the markets.
Yeah. This is a concerning point. So I do like buying cheap, but I don't always like buying cheap. So the question is, what in the world is causing this? Because that is not a good sign. Now, maybe it means it's an incredible buy. I mean, its market cap is down to $244,000. Like, what has caused this? I don't know. Especially as we look over at the other token for this project, Cetus. Now, it's also down, but it hasn't done this same thing. So, I don't know, was there a hack of their Cetus contract? What is causing this kind of devastating price movement? Unless I can answer that. See, I like undervalued things. But if there's word that the Senate token is going to be discontinued, or if there's word that the business is closing its doors, I want to buy at that point. So I like buying cheap, but I don't like buying right as they're about to go completely belly up. And sometimes you don't know. But when I see this kind of thing, I want to know why. Now, I did reach out a week ago to do an interview with Dan, who is the CEO of this company. And he said we can arrange something. We haven't got it yet on the table. So I can't buy at this price either, because I don't know fundamentally what's driving this really low project or price. And it's a concern that maybe there is something really devastating that I'm not aware of. And there might not be, but there may be. So I just want to hear that the company has lots more runway and other things before I would buy this. So for me, it's just a wait. I'm not going to jump in and buy this. If I did, I would just consider it straight up gambling money, not investment money, but gambling money. It's like, you know what, casino, the odds are terrible. So maybe this has better odds than the casino, but it's not good enough odds for me to consider it investment money unless I know that the underlying company is still pretty good with at least a decent amount of runway. And I don't know that yet. So I can't buy this. It would be just a wait. And I have some Senate token. I'm not buying more till I hear that. I'm not selling either, but I'm just going to wait. Now, there were some points where Axie Infinity had this kind of price movement on things. It did end up surviving. It ended up going 3,000x from where I bought at. But funny enough, where I bought at wasn't even the bottom, because it went meaningfully down from where I bought it. Just went 3,000x when it did go crazy from where I had bought at, which means it really did like a 10,000x from the bottom. At least a 10,000x from the bottom. So anyway, yeah, Senate is concerning. I'm not going to buy more at this price till at least I speak to the CEO to find out if everything's good with the company. Yeah, IMS says Senate could become Ember Sword 2.0. Yeah, one of the blockchain gaming projects I liked has failed, right? So a lot of times people think when you invest in crypto, the businesses should never fail. And that's not what crypto is. Like, a lot of these are early stage businesses that some of them will fail. So if you're looking for a place where no businesses you invest in fail, there is no place like that. So the question you have to ask yourself is, will your successes more than make up for your losses? For an example, when I was first learning this, like really figuring crypto out, I made a number of mistakes, like 2/3 of what I invested in. And they weren't really mistakes, it's just par for the course. 2/3 of what I invested in failed. The third that survived, because the odds were stacked in my favor, that if they survived, I would make so much money. I still made crazy returns that it doesn't matter that I had some that went and I lost everything on those, because the ones that did make it went up so much. I made more money than you can make in almost any market anywhere, even though only a third of them even survive. So Senate could go under, and that's okay. You know, one of the ones I like, Ember Sword, they ran out of runway and ran out of money and had to close their doors. That's what a failure looks like. In this place, you don't need every single one to succeed to make incredible money. And will Senate make it? We'll see. I look forward to speaking with Dan and making sure the business is even solvent, because maybe they're on their way out and they don't have enough runway to keep development going. All right. What else do we have? So we looked at Senate. Next one, Blonde Rose says, using coin market cap, look at NAT, and we'll see what that is. NAT.
Yeah, it says see all results. So I'm trying to do the well, I'm looking at it, but I'm not sure which one it is, because there's still a few. There's DMT, NAT,
Yeah,
NATIX.
you give us more information, Blonde Rose. I appreciate you trying to walk this through, but you didn't tell us which of these we're even looking for. Okay, in the meantime, like overall, while we're waiting to hear more on that, he says DM.
Okay, so that's the first one. Yeah, so DMT, NAT.
Okay.
All right, let's have a look.
Honeywell International.
No, that can't be right. No, that's a stock.
No, that it's pulled up for some reason. It should have pulled up this one.
Oh,
and it
okay.
didn't pull up that one on you.
Hang on. Oh, it pulled up that one for some reason, even though I'm sure I clicked there. Obviously, I didn't, so I got that wrong. So yeah, let's see. So it looks all of the data. That's all. Yeah, that was everything we've got. Yeah, I mean look, what's happening here. It's kind of interesting in the sense that how much data oh gosh, we haven't got a lot of data at all, have we? It's only 11th of August to now. So that's not really long enough to. This is like the casino, stick it on red or stick it on black at this point. It really is. But what I would say here is that there is support around these levels because of this area here. Can't get rid of this cursor thing that's or this pop-out box. But the area on the left of the screen that you can see, that's relative support. And if it's starting to turn around a little bit here, see those 3 points where it's hit that low 1, 2, 3 times and it's slightly higher. A very small position, just to see, just a nibble. That was all I would do with this at this point. There's not enough to justify even a breakout because it hasn't broken out yet. But what I'm seeing is a downward trend and a slowing. And then what I'd want to see is the next step is breaking the high of the range of the last few bars. So if it gets over this level here, this high of this one here, that would also be the high of some of the previous bars. And it looks like it would look like things are starting to turn around a little bit. But given that this is a daily chart, given that it's also in the space that it's in, so I keep saying things can change very quickly. So I'd have to have a parachute point. And I wouldn't want to hold it below these support points here. And there's not much margin of safety for the position to breathe in that case. It could just take one bad day and it's kind of gone. But yeah, I'm happy to keep following it because it's I find these charts quite interesting. You know, when something's new and it starts to do something unusual, i.e. accelerate hopefully to the upside, we'll see what sort of patterns it makes, or if it indeed does start to turn around. But I think something like this, you can be early, sometimes you can be a little too early without any price action. I mentioned before, and there may be new listeners, I'm not sure, but so the thing with technical analysis, it works because the market is liquid. You have to have lots of people interacting, like in the stock markets, like in the currency markets, like in the bond markets, and like in the crypto markets that are relatively well established. As you get into a shorter time frame, into less and less liquid markets, new markets in crypto, they become more volatile and more subject to positions that are taken by individuals. An individual is not predictable. We don't know what any one person is going to do. They may own a lot of something, decide to buy a house or need to pay a tax bill or something and sell, and that can influence the price. Whereas what we want to see is the kind of community idea of what something should be priced at, because not everybody's in that same situation. So technical analysis relies on the broader market sentiment and how this doesn't tend to change over time, the way people respond to markets. So when something's as small as this, it's more subject to be blown about by a single position, which is more unpredictable. So it's definitely in that camp. But having said that, we can still read the chart, and actually, the chart from this is giving some quite interesting technical patterns. We can see where the initial breakout was to the upside. We can see the signs of the reversal, and we can see what it's trying to do here. I would say if this area here, as it's flattened out in volatility, if this fails and it does take this low, I wouldn't be surprised to see it move quite sharply to the downside, because it would be pressing from this move here. So for me, I think either coffee money or waiting would be how I'd view it. And I'd much prefer it to actually be breaking through that high, which I can also see is the two low points here as well. So that one and this high all match up. So for me to be more comfortable with buying it would have to go through that level.
Okay. This isn't really my type of investment. This is interesting. It's launched in November 2023. And NAT is a Bitcoin native fungible token created using the principles of digital matter theory. DMT is a framework that generates tokens directly from Bitcoin blockchain data, NAT specifically utilizing the bits field within Bitcoin blocks. This approach ties the creation of NAT tokens to Bitcoin's proof-of-work consensus mechanism, providing an additional layer of miner incentives without altering Bitcoin's core protocol. So it essentially rewards successful miners using Bitcoin's core protocol, but without altering it. It serves as a supplementary reward for Bitcoin miners. So okay, I don't know whether this theory will ultimately be successful with what they're trying to do. And it's not the type of bet that I make. So within the broader crypto space, there's so much that can steal your focus. I found that I like this specific niche within the greater space because I like blockchain companies that are doing something that I think there's a need for, like that there's runway for. And I specifically like businesses that are 2 to 6 years old, which means they've been out for a while and they raised their funds sometime in the past, and we see whether they're continuing to work hard. Now, this doesn't ultimately mean they're going to survive, but it's almost like early stage venture capital investing. However, within the crypto space, we have something special that early stage venture capitalists don't have. And that's called crypto tokens, because that provides liquidity. See, one of the problems when you're investing in early stage businesses is you have almost no liquidity in those businesses. You're really looking for an exit usually when the company goes public before you can actually exit and cash in some of your investment. Well, because we have access to these tokens, number one, the tokens are extremely volatile, which is a good thing if you like buying cheap. But it also provides a marketplace where there's at least some amount of liquidity that you can cash out. Now, specifically, I'm buying tokens related to these early stage businesses when I feel they're massively undervalued during a bear market, and I'm looking to sell when crypto goes crazy. While I realize not all of the ones that I'm buying are ultimately going to survive. Even if you're buying blue chips, that doesn't mean ultimately those blue chips survive. So I'm delving in a space where probably maybe half, or if I'm doing really good, 2/3 survive. And that if they survive, their tokens might do a 50x or a 100x or a 300x or a 400x. Imagine if half of what you were buying survived, and you didn't end up buying at the complete lows, you didn't end up selling at the complete tops, but you end up getting a 50x on the half that survived. That means your overall investment during the 4-year period might have done a 25x return. Is it fair to say that is making your money work for you better than probably any other markets you could have been in during that time frame? And that was even with a 50% failure rate. And that's even with not buying the lows and not selling the tops. Well, that's what's exciting to me about crypto, but you have to understand that. Now, this falls outside the guidelines of what I'm looking at. Can't look at this and understand why it might do 50 to 100x. Number two, I don't know who the team is behind this. Number three, like, is this needed? Well, I think this idea of ownership within gaming is needed, and blockchain enables it. And it gives, crypto allows people to buy the items within games with, say, ETH or some other cryptocurrency that makes it transactable. So I like this idea of blockchain gaming. I like these ideas. DeFi makes sense to me. DEVVE is a layer 1 blockchain that solves some problems I like. Those are businesses that I like. In the little bit I've seen here, I don't understand why this meaningfully adds. Now, maybe it does, because eventually Bitcoin mining will run out of rewards. There will be no more Bitcoin to distribute. So how is the Bitcoin network going to continue to make it just off fees alone? Well, if there's some kind of supplement, maybe that makes sense. But why are people going to buy this supplemental token that's rewarded to miners? That is the part I don't understand. So in the business, because when I'm in the crypto space, I'm not just buying cryptos. I'm not just going to buy whatever meme coin and stuff because it's in the crypto space. I'm looking for specific things within the crypto space that I can wrap my mind around and first understand what is the business behind this. Secondly, is it at an overly depressed price because I'm going to make my money by buying low and selling high? So what is the argument behind why this is meaningfully low compared to why it might go meaningfully high in the future? And those are the parts I don't understand on this yet. And maybe there's a story behind that, but why are people going to buy the token associated with this? If it's a reward going to miners, well, cool. Miners are going to end up getting this reward. Why is somebody meaningfully going to buy it? Why does this have longevity? Those are parts I don't understand. Lonbro said, I'd be happy to chat with Nat about you after the show sometime if you like. Yeah, hit me up on preferably Discord. If you don't have access to my Discord, hit me up on Telegram. Because there's fundamentals and most projects have a story. So yeah, I need to hear more about the story, and that's where research comes in. That's fundamental research gives us that. Now, can we check sand? Let's do it. We got time for it. Smile J says, even if seed is running out of runway, they never come on YouTube to announce that. We will realize only when it's too late. That is often the case. The truth is, like Ember Sword, right? They didn't meaningfully come out and warn you we're about to close our doors. They almost never do that. They just finally announced, shoot, we weren't able to raise any more capital and we have to close our doors. So people think that they're going to come into the crypto space and never invest in a business that's going to go under. That's just a wrong idea behind it. What I like to share with people is that, like, I like to think I was good, but I know I wasn't really good because 2/3 of what I invested in went bad in the first bear market that I was making these investments. But 1/3 of them survived, and a third of them that survived made me so much money that I sometimes forget about the 2/3 that failed. And so this space is lucrative enough. If you are investing with the right principles, it'll still can meaningfully go well with you. Now, do understand that 95% of people don't make money in crypto because they don't buy what's low and sell what's high. They buy what's going high and hope that it goes higher, and that ends poorly, very poorly. Like, I have my own principles that I use that actually act as a guide. Now, I did look at what worked well, like what are the commonalities between the third that survived and did meaningfully well. So this last bear market, I focused really on the commonalities that the third that survived had. And that doesn't mean that everything that I invest in this bear market is going to survive. I already know that's not the case because a couple of them have failed already and gone out of business. They just didn't have enough runway to make it. That is part of early stage business investing, and it's okay. Let's take a look at sand.
Yeah. So sand, if this is correct and it's spiked down, I mean, that's kind of horrific, isn't it, really? Again, I don't know if this is just a bad print, but it's given the way things have been over the last couple of weeks, it is definitely possible. So we've got, on the one hand, it is a good thing that it's recovered so much and it was an anomaly that it was trading down here. But on the other hand, it's been under pressure for a long time. And as you know, when something, from my perspective, when something's trading near its low, especially when it's hovering around its prior low, that is a technical warning sign. If we flip this and invert it, if it was trying to break out to the upside, I would be positive on it. So what we've got here, what's shaking out, is a kind of a tight compression of price action near the low. And it's in a very dicey position here because it feels like it wants to go lower to me, even though it has rallied back up. Now, in order to negate this pattern, it needs to get back above this 0.238 level because that's the kind of the high of this compression. To negate it, we don't know whether that's going to happen or not. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll find out. But either way, it's in a precarious position. Lower highs compressing it down as well from this high here. This pattern needs to break. I mean, it was trying to do it here, but it didn't get through the resistance. Again, it tried to get towards that line here, and it just failed. So we've got that gap there. So for me, it needs to be above this water. That's below the water line. This is above the water line. So it's less critical here, but it's still not doing enough for it to be a buy. It needs to break this line for me for it to be a buy. So it's got a lot of work to do. And as I say, the two things that are playing against each other are, yeah, it was bought up from the low. Maybe somebody got a fantastic bargain down there, or maybe it didn't really trade there at all. So that's great that it's recovered from a broader point of view, but it is still not out of the woods from its prior price action anyway, even if we were to completely discount what happened there. So definitely a wait for me, and let's look at it again in a couple of weeks.
Sandbox and Decentraland particularly are something that provide a very valuable lesson for me. Now, I made some money on Sand. I didn't mean to. Made some money on Decentraland as well. I also didn't quite mean to in the way that I did. I learned some good things from them. this wick down, it's a good time to talk about it. And Chris alluded to it earlier, that there was this interesting thing that happened that caused the markets to cascade even further down. A stable coin on Binance depegged, and part of that on Binance, tons of things got liquidated. Everyone was locked out of the big exchanges. So as things were going down, Paul, most of the exchanges got and this often happens in the crypto space, when major activity and volume happens. I don't know if the exchange overloads or something, but you end up getting locked out and you can't get in. And so you can't go in and buy as these prices, these longs are just cascadingly getting liquidated, because the exchange has so much going on that you can't log in. And so this happens, like the exchanges shut down every time the markets are going crazy to the downside. And sometimes when they're going crazy to the upside, you're not able to log in and buy or sell or do whatever. And so it's one of the problems of why longs are so risky. And so all these longs just got liquidated while everyone was locked out of the market. So it's not like you could log in and buy at 9 cents, which might have stopped this free fall from happening because everyone was locked out. And so the market makers also pulled their liquidity as things were dropping like this, which just got certain coins absolutely devastated. And some people leveraged their certain long that they had against their whole portfolio. So say they had sand in their portfolio and they had an XRP long. Well, they might have had exposure to everything in the exchange, which means their sand would have gotten liquidated as well as their XRP and everything they had in the exchange. If they had checked this box to, hedge their long position against everything in their portfolio, and then would have gotten liquidated. And that's some of what drove these cascading prices across a lot of the crypto market, like this wick. Like that wick happened, but so if you had a buy order in at 6 cents, you would have been successful. There are a few people I knew that had these crazy buy orders in. They just happened to have these crazy buy orders in that never should have been filled, and yet they got filled. But you wouldn't have been able to log in and buy at these unless you already had the buy order in place. So it was a crazy thing that happened. Now back to the lesson I learned from Sand and Decentraland. So back in 2020 and 2019, I would look at a lot of these projects and I thought the use case for the token was extremely important. And if it didn't have a strong use case, that I thought, well, the token, there's not a meaningful reason why the token would go crazy. In Sandbox, I didn't hold a lot of the Sand token, or I did hold some, but not as much as I would have, because I thought they didn't really have a use case for the token. You could use the token to buy on their, buy some of their Sandbox land and stuff. But other than that, there wasn't really a use case for it. Same with Decentraland. There wasn't really a use case for it other than that's the token that was used to buy stuff in the marketplace, was the mana token. But in some cases, you could also use ETH. So I thought, well, there's no real strong use case for the token, so therefore it probably won't do well. And so back in 2020, realized it was trading around 3 to 4 cents. Now I bought a bunch of the token in order to buy some Sandbox land. And I was able to get a few orders in, buy some of their land. But funny enough, I cashed out a lot of the token, but not all of it, back to ETH. Now look at what the token did. Even though there was no meaningful use case for the token, went here all the way to 70 cents. And then later when we had the metaverse pump, it went all the way to $7, from 5 cents to $7. In fact, if you'd got it at a low of like 3.5 cents, it literally did a 200x with no meaningful use case. So what I learned is the underlying narrative for the company itself is even more important than the use case. So a lot of people, one of my ones I like is Omi, and they're like, well, what is the real use case for? Okay, there's some burns. And yeah, you can use OMI to buy the items, but what is the real use case? Like, there's no really fundamental use case. You don't have to have the OMI token. They're right. You don't. I mean, now they have changed some things that you kind of need the OMI token to be able to exchange on a secondary marketplace for the items, but you don't need to have it. It's true. Is that going to stop it from doing crazy if digital collectibles become a thing? No. Digital collectibles become a really big thing and everyone's talking about it. Their token is probably going to go crazy, whether or not there's a strong use case. Now, they've done a number of things that I think their use case is actually fairly decent. Cool. But it doesn't even need that to do meaningfully well. And I saw that with Sandbox and Decentraland. I mean, I held a bunch and all of a sudden it was going to these crazy numbers. And I was like, well, what the hell? I don't understand why this is happening, but I'll take it. And I sold when it was going crazy because I was like, wow, geez, this is amazing. And made a bunch of money off it that I didn't even mean to, because I didn't think that, I thought use case was much more important than it turns out it is. But it does have to be something that you want to be buying it. When Sandbox was meaningfully out of the narrative here at 3.5 cents to 5 cents, when it became strongly in the narrative, went to $7. So buying something when it's out of the narrative and people aren't thinking about or talking about it is critical, so that you're buying low. And when it comes in the narrative and it's going to $7, that is not buy time. But realize most people were trading that wrong. When it went to $7 was when a bunch of people were loading in. That is not buy time. That is take profits and exit time. Cool. All right. I think that's what we have today, Paul.
Okay. Well, thanks for the picks. Thanks for all the comments, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, we're super glad to see you. I'm glad you were here with us this week, and we appreciate DEVVEnity for lending you to us. So
Thank
good
you.
to see you, Paul.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Well, as you see, crypto is volatile. What I love is that you can use your money, if you learn how to use it well, to make more money for you. And within the crypto space, you can have it make you meaningful money so that you do never have to worry about money again. And I don't know another place where you can experience the kind of gains that you can in crypto. However, I hope you're understanding that you need to be doing it right. For those that are interested, we do have a private Discord. Currently, to get access to private Discord, you have to join the Patreon. Join the Patreon. It gives you a way to connect to the Discord. And it does check that if you join the Patreon, then you quit the Patreon, it will kick you from the Discord. It's kind of the gatekeeper, and you can join it for as little as $20 a month. There are other levels too if you want more levels of interaction to myself and other Rainmaker family members. So join it. I mean, where else? Part of becoming the 5% is surrounding yourself with other people on that journey. Because one of the challenges is you're learning to do things right. Normally, you're surrounded by so many people doing things wrong that you question your judgment. Even if you're on track, you'll have so many people that are questioning what you're doing that you'll think you're off track. And that's part of the reason we put the Discord together, is so that you can be surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are on this journey, learning how to think like the 5% do. Because as you get it, as you start to understand the real principles behind learning to make your money make money for you, it will carry over beyond crypto. Like, we have this window in time that crypto is only going to be so profitable for that window is not as long as some people think. And at some point, this is not going to be as profitable as it is. Like right now, we're right before, I think, massive money comes into crypto. I think in the next 8 months, a lot of this cycle's gains will be realized, and it is exit time. And if we're lucky, we have one more massive cycle after that, or I don't even know if it'll be massive, but let's just say big cycle after that. And then the returns will be diminishing, but there will be other markets, other things, and you only have to learn this principle and become good at it once, and you'll be able to continue using it for the rest of your life to make your money make money for you. But meaningfully, once you get to a point where you don't have to work anymore, your money is working for you, you can live life in a very good way. You can live life without the worry and the stresses that you have now of never seeming to have enough money. Thanks so much, guys. I love you all. Enjoy this wrap. Just a fun way to remember these principles so that, I don't know, I wrote the words to this and just put them in a fun way. So if you learn some of these principles of not chasing green candles, I call it buying when it's boring. Some of these other things that are embedded in this fun wrap. We'll see you soon.
Came into this space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling a parabolic to dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong can soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time can be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.